Ambassador Nathaniel Rhodes stood at the observation deck of the Terran diplomatic vessel, Prometheus, watching the massive ring-shaped station of the Galactic Council grow larger against the backdrop of swirling nebulae. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced transparent aluminum, a face that had seen Earth rise from a primitive spacefaring civilization to, well, what they were about to reveal today. Ambassador, called Lieutenant Kira Patel from her station, the Council's defensive grid is scanning us. Should I allow full penetration? Rhodes smiled slightly. Let them look all they want, Lieutenant. It's time they saw what we've been hiding under our primitive exterior. The Prometheus was officially a diplomatic vessel, supposedly representing the peak of human engineering. To the casual observer, it appeared to be exactly what the Galactic Council expected from Earth, functional but unrefined, with visible weld lines and practical, unglamorous design choices. The truth, however, was far more interesting. As they approached the station, dozens of ships from various Council races moved in elaborate patterns around them. The Voraxians with their crystalline vessels that bent light itself, the Meridian Republic's bioorganic ships that pulsed with internal energy, and the Zk-Theres' impossible geometric constructions that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. All of them representing civilizations thousands or millions of years older than humanity. They're hailing us, Kira announced. The Council is ready to receive our petition. Rhodes straightened his simple gray uniform. Initiate protocol revelation. Throughout the ship, hidden systems began to activate. Quantum matrices that had remained dormant since the ship's construction came online. The primitive exterior of the Prometheus began to shift, not through mechanical means, but through manipulation of matter at its most fundamental level. In the Council chamber, hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy watched their sensor readings with increasing alarm. The supposedly primitive human vessel was transforming before their eyes, its hull restructuring itself at the quantum level. The crude welds and visible panels dissolved, replaced by a seamless surface that seemed to drink in light itself. Energy readings that should have been impossible for human technology began to emanate from the ship. First Speaker Zilith of the Council rose from their crystalline throne, all 6 eyes fixed on the main display. What is the meaning of this deception? Their voice boomed through the chamber. Rhodes's hologram appeared in the center of the Council chamber, a simple trick by their standards, but the smile on his face carried the weight of centuries of human ingenuity. Honorable Council, he began, his voice steady and confident, for 200 years, humanity has played the role you expected of us. The bumbling newcomers, the primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. We accepted your guidance, your protection, your thinly veiled contempt. But today, that charade ends. The Prometheus had completed its transformation. Where once stood a crude vessel of metal and ceramics now hovered a ship that defied the Council's most advanced sensors. Its hull wasn't simply dark, it seemed to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously there and not there. Humanity has never been what we appeared to be, Rhodes continued. We learned early in our development that appearing weak while growing strong was the surest path to survival. Every limitation you thought you observed was carefully crafted. Every technological gap you noted was intentionally displayed. We are not here to petition for membership in your council. We are here to suggest a reorganization. The chamber erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. The Prometheus's sensors detected weapons being charged on dozens of ships, defensive systems activating throughout the station. Rhodes remained calm. Before anyone does anything rash, he said, his voice cutting through the pandemonium, you should know that this ship is merely a demonstration. Even now, thousands of similar vessels are emerging from hiding throughout Council space. We have been here all along, watching, learning, preparing. The question now is not whether humanity deserves a seat at your table, but whether your table is large enough for what we've become. In the silence that followed, the future of galactic politics hung in the balance. Humanity had hidden its true nature for centuries, building its strength while playing the role of the primitive newcomer. Now, as the Prometheus hung in space like a dark star, that masquerade was over. The galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber's air filtration systems struggled to keep up with the agitated pheromones of 24 different species. First speaker Zilitha's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained energy as they addressed the emergency session. Explain to me, they directed their words at the holographic form of Ambassador Rhodes, how humanity has managed to violate every known law of quantum mechanics without detection for 2 centuries. Rhodes's hologram walked casually around the chamber's center, passing through the raised platforms of various council members as if they weren't there. We didn't violate them, first speaker. We simply understood them better. Humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology, it's our ability to see patterns others miss. On cue, Lieutenant Patel activated the second phase of their revelation. Above each council member's station, detailed holographic displays materialized, showing centuries of human scientific advancement that had been carefully hidden from galactic society. While you saw us struggling with fusion power, we were perfecting zero-point energy harvesting, Rhodes explained. While you watched us fumble with basic shield technology, we were developing quantum phase barriers that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But perhaps most importantly, while you dismissed us as technological infants, we were studying you. The ZK theory representative, a being of pure energy contained within a geometric matrix, flared with indignation. Impossible. Our quantum detection grids would have detected anything operating within the parameters you understand, Rhodes interrupted. But humanity took a different approach. We didn't try to overcome your detection systems, we simply operated in spaces you never thought to look. The displays shifted to show human installations hidden in dimensional pockets throughout council space. Research stations tucked away in the quantum foam between realities. Manufacturing facilities that existed in probabilistic states, only solidifying when needed. Admiral Venn of the Meridian Republic slammed his tentacles against his console. This is an act of war. You've infiltrated sovereign space of every council race. No, Rhodes corrected calmly. We've demonstrated why your concept of sovereign space is outdated. The universe isn't the simple three-dimensional construct your civilizations have built your empires upon. Reality is far more complex, far more interesting. The Prometheus, still hovering outside the station, began to emit energy signatures that caused the Council's most advanced sensors to short out. Not through overwhelming power, but through fundamental impossibility. What you're seeing, Rhodes explained as panic began to spread through the chamber, is what we call quantum architecture. The Prometheus isn't just a ship, it's a statement of principle. Its hull exists in a state of quantum uncertainty, not because we forced it to, but because we learned to work with the natural uncertainty of the universe. First speaker Zilitha's crystalline form vibrated with frequencies that indicated deep distress. Why reveal this now? Why risk the stability of the galactic order? Rhodes's hologram turned to face them directly. Because the galaxy is changing, whether you recognize it or not. There are threats approaching that your traditional methods can't handle. Humanity didn't develop these technologies out of arrogance or aggression, we developed them out of necessity. The chamber grew quiet as the implications of his words sank in. The displays shifted again, showing astronomical data that most council races had dismissed as background noise. Patterns in the chaos of deep space, movements in the void between galaxies. We've detected something out there, Rhodes continued, his voice growing grave. Something that operates on principles even we don't fully understand. We've been preparing for their arrival for generations. That's the real reason we maintained our charade for so long, we needed time to build our defenses without drawing their attention. The Voraxian representative, whose crystalline form usually sparkled with internal light, had grown dim with concern. You speak of these threats, yet provide no proof beyond these convenient displays. Rhodes smiled, but there was no humor in it. The proof is already in your archives, council member. In fact, it's been there for millennia. You've just never had the perspective to recognize it. Lieutenant Patel, show them Program Oracle's findings. The displays shifted one final time, and the chamber fell into absolute silence. Before them, compiled from thousands of years of council records, archaeological data, and astronomical observations, was a pattern so vast and terrible that it had remained hidden in plain sight. A pattern that suggested humanity's revelations were just the beginning of a much larger crisis. Now, Rhodes said into the stunned silence, shall we discuss the real reason we're here? Because the choice before you isn't whether to accept humanity as equals. The choice is whether we face what's coming together, or separately. The Prometheus pulsed once, a ripple of quantum possibility spreading out through space, a demonstration and a warning wrapped in one impossible moment. The game of galactic politics had changed forever, and the old rules no longer applied. The only question was whether the Council could adapt fast enough to survive what was coming. The warning came not with a bang, but with a whisper. Ambassador, Lieutenant Patel's voice cut through the tense negotiations that had been running for 72 hours straight. We're detecting quantum anomalies at the edge of chartered space. They match the patterns we've been tracking. Rhodes felt the weight of centuries of preparation settle onto his shoulders. He turned to the assembled council, their forms flickering in various states of agitation and fear. It seems our discussion must be accelerated. They're here earlier than we predicted. The massive quantum displays throughout the council chamber shifted, showing real-time data from humanity's sensor network. The void between stars was changing. Space itself seemed to be folding in impossible ways, creating patterns that hurt the mind to observe. By the first light, breathed first speaker Zilith, their crystalline form resonating with terror. What are we seeing? We call them the Void Dancers, Rhodes explained, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. They're not ships or beings in any conventional sense. They're more like thoughts given form. Ideas that learn to bend reality. The Prometheus's quantum sensors tracked the approaching entities. Where normal space met their influence, physics began to break down. Conventional matter simply ceased to exist, transformed into something else, something wrong. This is why we hid our true nature, Rhodes continued. We detected their approach centuries ago, but we knew that conventional defenses would be useless. We needed to develop technology that operated on their level, technology that could fight concepts with concepts. The council chamber erupted into chaos as the first wave of void dancers reached an outlying colony world. The planet's defensive systems, among the most advanced in known space, didn't even register the attack. They simply stopped being. The entire planet flickered like a faulty hologram, its very existence becoming uncertain. Admiral Ven's tentacles writhed in distress. How do we fight something that unmakes reality itself? With impossibility, Rhodes answered, nodding to Lieutenant Patel. Across council space, hidden human vessels began to emerge from their quantum hiding places. Each ship pulsed with energies that shouldn't exist, their hulls flickering between states of being and non-being. The Prometheus isn't just a ship, Rhodes explained as the vessel outside the station began to transform again. It's a prototype. A proof of concept for fighting an enemy that doesn't play by the rules of conventional physics. The human ships moved to intercept the Void Dancers, their quantum architecture allowing them to exist in the same uncertain state as their opponents. Where they met, reality itself seemed to shudder, as two fundamentally different approaches to breaking physics clashed. What we're about to show you, Rhodes continued, his hologram walking through the chamber's central display, is why humanity chose to appear weak. We needed time to perfect this technology, to learn to fight on a level that most species never even imagine exists. The displays showed the first engagement between human ships and the Void Dancers. It was unlike any battle the Council had ever witnessed. There were no energy weapons, no conventional explosions. Instead, probability itself became a weapon. Ships phased between states of existence, using uncertainty as both shield and sword. Each of our vessels, Rhodes explained as the battle unfolded, is equipped with what we call a reality anchor. It's a device that can temporarily stabilize local spacetime, forcing everything within its influence to conform to normal physics. Even the void dancers can't ignore it completely. The council watched in stunned silence as the human fleet demonstrated capabilities that rewrote everything they thought they knew about warfare. Ships split into multiple quantum states, existed in several places simultaneously, or simply refused to accept the changes the void dancers tried to impose on reality. But it wasn't enough. For every void dancer they managed to trap and destroy, 2 more emerged from the spaces between spaces. The human fleet was holding its own, but only barely. This, Rhodes said, his voice cutting through the tension, is why we reveal ourselves now. Humanity can fight them, yes, but we cannot win alone. We need the Council's resources, your combined knowledge, your unity. The void dancers aren't just humanity's problem, they're coming for all of us. First speaker Zilith rose from their throne, their crystalline form pulsing with decision. What would you have us do, Ambassador? How can we possibly help against such an enemy? Rhodes smiled, but it was a grim expression. Your civilizations have existed for millions of years. You've forgotten more about the universe than humanity has ever known. We don't need your current technology, we need your history. Your ancient records. Your forgotten experiments. Because somewhere in those millions of years of development, we believe you encountered these beings before. And survived. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Outside, the battle continued, reality itself trembling as humanity fought to buy time for a galaxy that had never truly known the danger it was in. Deep within the quantum-shielded archives of the Council Station, Rhodes stood before a holographic display of incomprehensible complexity. Around him, researchers from a dozen species worked frantically to decode records so ancient they predated most civilizations. Ambassador, called out Dr. Reyna Verghese, Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, her dark eyes bright with excitement. We found something in the Varaxian genetic archives. Their crystalline forms, they're not natural evolution. They were engineered specifically to resist reality distortion. The Varaxian representative, Crystallarch ZYYX, hummed at a frequency that indicated surprise. Impossible. Our form has been constant for millions of cycles. Exactly, Reyna said, pulling up ancient genetic sequences. Your entire species was redesigned at a molecular level. The crystalline structure of your bodies isn't just for show, it's a living quantum computer, capable of maintaining local reality coherence. Outside the station, another wave of void dancers approached. The human fleet, now joined by specially modified council ships, continued their desperate defense. The Prometheus led the line, its quantum architecture serving as a template for the hybrid vessels that followed. Lieutenant Patel's hologram appeared beside Rhodes. Sir, we're losing the Proxima sector. The void dancers are learning to counter our reality anchors. They adapt quickly, Rhodes muttered, then turned to the assembled researchers. We need something more. The Varaxians are proof that the ancients knew how to fight these beings. What else are we missing? The ZK theory representative, whose energy form flickered with intensity, moved forward. Perhaps we have been looking at this wrong. We search for weapons, for defenses. But what if the answer lies not in fighting, but in understanding? Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Explain. The ZK theory's geometric containment matrix reconfigured itself, projecting ancient symbols into the air. Our oldest records speak of a time when our species existed in a different form. We believed it to be religious mythology, but in light of recent events. The being paused. We were once like them. Energy given consciousness, thought made manifest. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Verghese was the first to speak. You're saying the void dancers aren't invaders. They're what came before. Before matter, before conventional physics. Before reality as we know it, Rhodes finished. He turned to Lieutenant Patel's hologram. Get me a quantum link to the Prometheus. I need to test a theory. Hours later, the combined fleet faced another wave of void dancers. But this time, something was different. The Prometheus, its hull reconfigured based on ancient ZK theory principles, didn't fight. Instead, it began to resonate at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. "We're not sending waves through space," Rhodes explained to the stunned council as they watched. "We're sending ideas. Concepts. The void dancers don't understand our reality because they remember when reality was something else entirely." The effect was immediate and stunning. Where the resonance reached them, the void dancers paused. Their reality warping effects didn't cease, but they changed. Became less destructive, more curious. "They're trying to communicate," Dr. Verghese breathed, watching the patterns form. All this time, they weren't attacking, they were trying to remind the universe of what it used to be. The Prometheus's quantum architecture, modified with the combined knowledge of a dozen ancient civilizations, began to translate. Not through conventional means, but through the manipulation of probability itself. Each fluctuation in reality became a word, each distortion a sentence. "We are remembering," came the first translation, concepts so alien they barely fit into words. "The solid thought beings are remembering too." First speaker Zilitha's crystalline form resonated in harmony with the translations. "All our races, all our different forms, we're not separate species that evolved independently. We're different attempts to exist in this version of reality." Rhodes watched as more void dancers approached, not to attack, but to join the complex quantum conversation taking place. Then the question isn't how to fight them. It's how to exist together. How to bridge the gap between what reality was and what it is now. The combined fleet, human and council ships alike, began to adapt their quantum architectures to match the new understanding. The battle for survival had become something else entirely, a negotiation for the future of reality itself. The council chamber had changed. Where once stood rigid platforms and formal barriers, now quantum fields flickered and danced, allowing all species, both matter-bound and energy-based, to communicate in ways previously unimaginable. 3 months had passed since first contact with the void dancers. The Prometheus hovered outside the station, its hull now a shimmering interface between conventional space and what lay beyond, a bridge between realities. "The integration continues to exceed expectations," Lieutenant Patel reported, her hologram sharing space with several void dancer manifestations that chose to participate in the proceedings. Their presence no longer caused reality to shudder, instead, they created gentle ripples of possibility, like stones dropped in a cosmic pond. Rhodes stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives of what was now being called the United Reality Council. "The last of the quantum integration hubs has been established in the Carina sector," he announced. "With this network complete, we can maintain stable communication and coexistence between all forms of consciousness." First speaker Zilith, their crystalline form now enhanced with quantum resonators, chimed in harmonious frequencies. "Who could have imagined that our greatest fear would become our greatest teacher? The void dancers haven't just changed our technology, they've changed our understanding of existence itself." The displays around the chamber showed scenes from across the galaxy. On countless worlds, ancient technologies were being rediscovered and repurposed. The rigid barriers between species were dissolving as each civilization rediscovered their own forgotten connections to the primordial consciousness that the void dancers represented. "We've confirmed that the quantum architecture technology developed by humanity was not just a defensive measure," Dr. Verghese reported, excitement clear in her voice. "It was our species unconsciously remembering. Every civilization here carries fragments of memory from before the Great Solidification, when reality as we know it first crystallized into its current form." A void dancer manifestation shifted, its thoughts translating into concepts the others could understand. "The remembering brings unity. The separation was necessary for growth, but the time of reunion has come." The ZK theory representatives' geometric matrix expanded, sharing space with both physical and energy-based beings. "Our civilizations developed different strengths during our separation. Humanity's gift was seeing patterns, making impossible leaps of understanding. The Voraxians preserved stability in their very forms. My people maintained a connection to our energy-based origins. Each piece was necessary. Rhodes nodded, watching as the Prometheus demonstrated the latest breakthrough, a controlled fusion of physical and energy states that allowed matter-based beings to temporarily experience existence as the Void Dancers did. We spent centuries preparing for a war, he mused, only to discover we were really preparing for an awakening. First speaker Zilith raised their crystalline form, sending harmonics throughout the chamber. Let the records show that on this day, the United Reality Council officially recognizes the successful integration of all known forms of consciousness within our galaxy. The barriers between matter and energy, between conventional space and void, between past and present understanding, are finally falling. The chamber resonated with agreement from all forms present. The Void Dancers pulsed with patterns that translated as satisfaction and anticipation. Humanity's quantum ships, once built for war, now served as bridges between states of being. The Council race's ancient technologies, reawakened and repurposed, maintained the stability needed for multiple forms of existence to coexist. And yet, Rhodes added, a smile playing at his lips, I suspect this is just the beginning. The universe is vast, and we've only just learned to truly see it. The Prometheus's quantum sensors detected new patterns forming in deep space, not threats this time, but possibilities. Other galaxies were noticing the changes, other forms of consciousness were stirring. The adventure that had begun with humanity's deception was transforming into something far greater, a renaissance of reality itself. As the chamber filled with the combined consciousness of 1,000 species, each experiencing existence in their own unique way yet part of a greater whole, Rhodes thought back to those tense first moments when humanity revealed their true nature. They had prepared for war but found transcendence. They had expected conflict but discovered communion. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be. The new dawn had arrived, not with the thunder of battle, but with the quiet revelation of truly understanding one's place in the cosmic dance of existence.